To the staff at Mercy General, Lily was a liability, a silent, trembling nurse they mocked for 3 months because she refused to look doctors in the eye. They mistook her shaking hands for weakness, never suspecting those same hands had once held the lives of Tier 1 operators together in the darkest valleys of Afghanistan. They laughed at the mouse, completely unaware she was a ghost legend among Navy SEALs. The laughter died the moment a Black Hawk helicopter descended on the parking lot, carrying the US, military who had come to demand their combat legend back. The fluorescent lights of St. Jude's Medical Center in Seattle hummed with that familiar, headache-inducing frequency that only night shift workers truly understood. It was 2 a.m., the witching hour, where the caffeine wears off and the patience of the staff wears thin. Lily Bennett stood at the nurses' station, meticulously organizing patient charts. She was 32, though the premature grey streaks in her messy bun and the deep, etched lines around her eyes made her look older. She moved with a stiff, deliberate slowness, keeping her head down, her shoulders hunched forward, as if she were perpetually bracing for an impact that never came. "Check out the ghost," whispered Jessica, the head charge nurse, leaning against the counter with a smirk. She gestured with her chin toward Lily. "I swear, I dropped a bedpan 5 feet from her yesterday, and she flinched like a grenade went off. How did HR clear her? She's useless." Dr. Caleb Sterling, the arrogant second-year resident who walked the halls like he owned the building, laughed while signing a prescription. "She's a diversity hire or a charity case, Jess. Has to be. I asked her for a 16-gauge IV during the trauma intake last night, and she just stared at the tray for 5 seconds before moving. 5 seconds. In my OR, 5 seconds is a lifetime." Lily heard them. She always heard them. Her hearing had been tuned in environments where the snap of a twig could mean an ambush. But she said nothing. She simply tightened her grip on the clipboard, her knuckles turning white. She wasn't just quiet. She was aggressively submissive. She took the worst shifts without complaint. She cleaned up vomitus that the orderlies ignored. She let Dr. Sterling berate her for errors she didn't make. She had transferred here from a VA hospital in Ohio with a redacted file that the hospital administrator, Mr. Henderson, had only glanced at before hiring her. To everyone else, Lily Bennett was a washed-up, anxious burnout who probably couldn't hack it in a real ER. "Bennett!" Sterling's voice cracked through the hallway like a whip. Lily didn't jump, but she froze. She turned slowly. "Yes, doctor. Room 402. The post-op appendectomy. His BP is spiking. I told you to push labetalol 20 minutes ago. Why is the chart empty?" Sterling was standing over her, using his height to intimidate. I checked his vitals, doctor," Lily said, her voice raspy, barely a whisper. "His heart rate is bradycardic. If I pushed labetalol, it could have bottomed him out. I was waiting for you to—" "You were waiting?" Sterling slammed his hand on the counter. The loud bang made 2 other nurses jump. Lily didn't blink, but her pupil dilated. "You don't wait to think, Bennett. You do what I order. You are a nurse. I am the doctor. If I say push the meds, you push the meds. Do I need to report you for insubordination again?" "No, sir," Lily said, lowering her eyes to his scuffed loafers. "I'll do it." She walked away, feeling the heat of their stares burning into her back. "Pathetic," Jessica muttered as Lily vanished into the medication room. "She's going to kill someone one day." Lily leaned against the cool tile wall of the med room, her breathing shallow. She closed her eyes. For a split second, the smell of antiseptic vanished, replaced by the smell of burning jet fuel and copper blood. She saw the face of a young man, half his jaw missing, gripping her hand in the back of a pavehawk. "Stay with me, Doc. Stay with me." She shook her head violently, snapping the rubber band on her wrist, a grounding technique her therapist had taught her. She wasn't Doc anymore. She was just Nurse Bennett, and she needed this job. She needed the quiet. She needed the anonymity. But the quiet was about to be broken. 2 weeks later, the facade began to crack. It was a chaotic Tuesday afternoon. A massive pile-up on I-5 had flooded the ER. St. Jude's was at capacity. Every bay was full. Doctors were shouting orders, and the floor was slick with saline and blood. Lily was assigned to Triage Bay 3, assisting Dr. Sterling with a code yellow, a middle-aged construction worker named Mike, who had been pulled from a crushed sedan. He was conscious, talking, but complaining of chest pain. "It's just bruising from the seat belt," Sterling announced dismissively, shining a penlight into Mike's eyes. "Get him a chest x-ray when the machine opens up, give him some Tylenol, and move him to the hallway. We need this bed for the criticals." "Doc, it hurts to breathe," Mike wheezed, clutching his left side. "You broke a rib, Mike. It hurts. That's how it works," Sterling snapped, turning to leave. "Bennett, move him." Lily moved to the bedside to unlock the wheels, but she paused. She looked at Mike. She looked at the way his jugular vein was slightly distended, pulsing against the skin of his neck. She watched his breathing. It wasn't just shallow. It was asymmetrical. "Stop," Lily said. Sterling spun around, sweat dripping from his brow. "Excuse me?" "Don't move him," Lily said. Her voice was different. The rasp was gone. It was flat, cold and commanding. "He's not stable." "I am the attending here, Bennett." I cleared him. "Move the damn bed." "Look at his JVD," Lily said, pointing to the patient's neck. "Look at the tracheal deviation starting. It's slight, but it's there. And listen to his speech pattern. He's air-hungry. This isn't a broken rib. It's a tension pneumothorax, and it's evolving fast. If you move him to the hallway, he codes in 5 minutes. He dies in 7. The entire bay went silent. Jessica, who was stocking gauze nearby, froze. Dr. Sterling looked at Lily as if the hospital mouse had just spoken in tongues. "You are a nurse," Sterling hissed, stepping into her personal space. "You do not diagnose. You do not speak. You—" Beep, beep. Beep, the monitor screamed. Mike's eyes rolled back into his head. His blood pressure plummeted instantly to 60/40ths. "He's crashing!" Jessica screamed. Sterling panicked. The arrogance drained from his face, replaced by the terrified incompetence of a resident who had made the wrong call. Get the crash cart! Tube him! Get anesthesia down here!" "No time," Lily said. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't tremble. In one fluid motion, Lily reached into her pocket. She didn't have a scalpel. She pulled out a thick 14-gauge angiocath needle. She ripped Mike's gown open. "Bennett, what the hell are you doing?" Sterling shouted, reaching for her arm. Lily caught Sterling's wrist mid-air. Her grip was iron. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on the patient's second intercostal space. She squeezed Sterling's wrist so hard the doctor yelped and dropped to one knee. "Step back," she ordered. It wasn't a request. It was a field order. She palpated the chest wall, once, twice, thump. Without hesitation, she drove the needle into Mike's chest. Hiss! The sound of trapped air escaping the chest cavity was audible over the chaos of the ER. It sounded like a tire deflating. Mike gasped, a massive, life-affirming intake of breath. The monitor immediately stabilized. The heart rate settled. The blood pressure climbed. Lily taped the needle in place, checked the pupils, and then finally let go of the breath she was holding. She turned to find the entire trauma team staring at her. Sterling was clutching his wrist, his face red with humiliation and shock. "Needle decompression," Lily said quietly, reverting instantly to her submissive posture, her shoulders slumping. "Standard protocol for that kind of thing. Sorry, doctor. I panicked." "You panicked?" Sterling whispered, standing up slowly. "You just performed an advanced surgical procedure without a license. You assaulted a doctor. He looked at the patient, who was now pink and breathing comfortably. He couldn't deny she had saved the man's life. But his ego was bruised far worse than his wrist. "Get out," Sterling said, his voice trembling with rage. "Get out of my ER. You're done, Bennett. I'm going to the board. You'll never work in medicine again." "Lily nodded. staring at the floor. "Yes, doctor." She walked out of the ER, past the stunned staff. She went to the locker room, sat on the bench, and began to untie her shoes. She was fired. It was over. She would have to move again, find another small town, disappear again. She reached for her bag, and her hand brushed against the old, worn dog tags she kept in the inner pocket. "Lieutenant Commander S. Mitchell, DevGru support. Call sign, Valkyrie." She pushed them deep into the bag. "Lily Bennett," she told herself. "My name is Lily Bennett." But outside, the low, thumping rhythm of rotors began to vibrate the windows of the hospital. It wasn't the usual medevac chopper. The sound was heavier, deeper, a mechanical growl that Lily knew better than the sound of her own heartbeat. She froze. She looked up at the high window in the locker room. "No," she whispered. "Not here. Please, not here." The sound grew louder, shaking the dust from the ceiling tiles. The noise was deafening. It wasn't just a sound. It was a physical pressure wave that rattled the instruments in the operating rooms on the 5th floor. In the emergency room, chaos reigned. Patients were screaming, clutching their ears. The automatic sliding doors at the ambulance bay blew open and stuck there, jammed by the sheer force of the wind. Outside, in the physician's parking lot, specifically crushing Dr. Sterling's reserved spot sign, a massive shadow descended from the sky. It was an MH-60M Black Hawk, but not the standard military issue. This machine was matte black, devoid of reflective surfaces, with no identifying white stars or unit numbers painted on the fuselage. It was a ghost bird, an asset of the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC. Dr. Sterling, still fuming from the incident with Lily, stormed towards the ambulance bay doors, followed closely by Mr. Henderson, the hospital administrator, and Paul, the lone, overweight security guard. "This is insane!" Sterling screamed over the roar of the rotors. "They're landing in the staff lot. That's a violation of FAA regulations. I'm going to have their licenses. Paul, get their badge numbers." Paul, clutching his hat, looked at Sterling like he was insane. "Doctor, that's a military chopper. I don't care who they are. They're damaging my BMW." The helicopter touched down, the landing gear groaning as it compressed under the weight. The rotors didn't spin down. They kept turning at high idle, kicking up a storm of grit, candy wrappers, and loose gravel that pelted Sterling's face. The side door of the Black Hawk slid open with a metallic clack. 4 men jumped out. They didn't look like the National Guard soldiers the hospital staff saw during flood relief. These men were bearded, their faces smeared with grease and dirt. They wore multicam trousers and T-shirts stretched tight over armor plates. Their helmets were high-cut, adorned with strobes, battery packs, and quad-lens panoramic night vision goggles flipped up like insect eyes. And they were armed, heavily armed. Short-barreled HK 416 rifles with suppressors were slung across their chests. They moved with a predatory, fluid grace, weapons at the low ready, scanning the perimeter not like visitors, but like they were securing a landing zone in hostile territory. "Hey!" Sterling marched forward, his white coat flapping violently in the rotor wash. He held up a hand. "You cannot land here. This is a private medical facility. You are trespassing." The lead operator, a towering man with a thick red beard and a scar running through his left eyebrow, didn't even slow down. He simply walked through Sterling as if the doctor were a ghost. His shoulder checked Sterling hard enough to send the doctor stumbling back into a row of shopping carts. The operator ignored him and marched straight for the automatic doors. He reached up to his radio headset. "Havoc to base. We are on deck. Securing the asset now." Mr. Henderson, the administrator, found his courage. He stepped in front of the sliding doors, blocking the entrance. "Now see here. I am the administrator of this hospital. You cannot bring weapons in here. Who is in charge?" The lead operator stopped. He looked down at Henderson. His eyes were icy blue and bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. On his plate carrier, a patch read simply, "Breaker." "Move," Breaker said. His voice was gravel, low and dangerous. "I will call the police," Henderson squeaked. Breaker stepped closer, looming over the small man. "Sir, we are operating under Title 50 authority sanctioned by the National Security Council. If you do not move, my team will breach these doors, and you will be detained for interfering with a federal operation. Now, move." Henderson scrambled aside. The 4 operators stormed into the ER lobby. The waiting room fell silent. A crying baby stopped crying. A man with a broken arm forgot his pain. The presence of these men sucked the oxygen out of the room. They brought the smell of ozone, aviation fuel, and old sweat into the sterile environment. Sterling ran in after them, red-faced and panting. "Security, Paul, stop them! They're looking for drugs! That has to be it!" Breaker stopped in the center of the triage area. He didn't look at the patients. He didn't look at the doctors. He scanned the nurse's station. "Where is she?" Breaker barked. Jessica, the charge nurse, was trembling behind the counter. "Who?" "The nurse," Breaker said, his hand resting near his sidearm, not threateningly, but habitually. "New hire, quiet. Scars on her hands. Where is Valkyrie?" Valkyrie?" Jessica stammered. "We don't have anyone named Valkyrie. We have a Lily. Lily Bennett." Breaker looked at his team. "Clear the back. Find her." "You're looking for Bennett?" Sterling laughed, a hysterical, high-pitched sound. "The mouse, the incompetent one. I just fired her. She's in the locker room packing her trash. You guys are here to arrest her, right? Did she kill someone at her last hospital? I knew it. I knew she was a fraud." Breaker turned slowly to face Sterling. The other 3 operators stopped, their hands tightening on their rifles. The air in the room grew heavy. "You fired her?" Breaker asked softly. "Damn right I did." Sterling puffed out his chest. "She assaulted me. She performed an unauthorized procedure. She's unstable." Breaker walked up to Sterling until they were nose to nose. The operator smelled of gunpowder. "If you fired her," Breaker whispered, "then you just compromised the most valuable medical asset the United States Navy possesses. And if she's left the building, Doctor, I'm going to hold you personally responsible for the death of the man in that chopper." Sterling blinked. "What?" "Check the locker room," Breaker shouted to his team. "Go!" Lily had her shoes tied. Her bag was slung over her shoulder. She was walking towards the back exit of the locker room, intending to slip out the fire escape and vanish into the alleyway. She heard the commotion outside, the shouting, the heavy boots on the linoleum. She knew that cadence. She knew the sound of those boots. "Don't turn around," she told herself. "Just keep walking. You're Lily Bennett. You're a nobody." "Valkyrie?" The voice echoed off the metal lockers. It was a voice she hadn't heard in 18 months. A voice she had tried to drown out with therapy and medication. Lily froze. Her hand hovered over the push bar of the exit door. "Don't make me chase you, Lily," the voice said. It was softer now, pleading. Lily slowly turned around. Standing in the doorway of the locker room was Commander Jack Breaker Hayes. He looked older than she remembered, more grey in the beard, darker circles under the eyes. But he was still the mountain of a man who had carried her out of the Zagros Mountains when she took shrapnel to the leg. "I'm not her anymore, Jack," Lily said, her voice shaking. "I'm retired. I'm out. I signed the papers." "There is no out for people like us, Lily," Jack said, stepping into the room. He left his rifle with his team in the hall. He approached her with open hands. "You know that." "I can't do it," Lily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't lose another one. I can't have that blood on me again. I'm just a nurse now. I hand out Tylenol. I get yelled at by residents. It's peaceful." "Peaceful," Jack scoffed gently. "I saw you in the hall. You look like a caged animal. You're dying here, Lily. Slowly. We both know it." "Why are you here, Jack?" Lily asked, hardening her expression. "You didn't land a bird in a civilian hospital parking lot just to say hi." Jack's face fell. The tough warrior mask slipped, revealing a terrified friend. "It's Tex." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. Tex? We were on a training op up near the border. Live fire. Something went wrong with the breach. A ricochet. Or a malfunction. I don't know. Jack swallowed hard. He took a hit, Lily. Neck. Just above the clavicle. It clipped the artery. We have a field dressing on it, but he's bleeding out. We couldn't make it to the base. This was the closest level 1 trauma center. So bring him to the ER, Lily shouted. Sterling is an idiot, but the trauma team here is capable. They have surgeons. They can't touch him, Jack said grimly. What? Why? Because the round that hit him? Jack hesitated. It's experimental ordnance. It's a prototype, fragmenting round. It's lodged against the spine. If a civilian surgeon tries to pull it out the way they learned in med school, it'll detonate, or it'll shred the spinal cord. They don't know the ballistics, Lily. You do. You helped design the protocol for field extraction of UXO, unexploded ordnance, in bodies. You're the only one who has ever done it and kept the patient alive. Lily leaned against the locker, breathing hard. Jack, I haven't held a scalpel in a year. My hands, they shake. Jack reached out and took her hands. He held them up. They were trembling slightly. They shake because you're holding back, Jack said intensely. They shake because you're a racehorse pulling a milk cart. Look at me. She looked up. Tex is dying. He has maybe 10 minutes. He's in the bird. He's asking for you. He didn't want us to land. He said, don't drag her back in. But I couldn't let him go. I need you, Lily. I need the ghost. Lily looked at her hands. She looked at the cheap scrubs she was wearing. She thought about Dr. Sterling's sneer. She thought about the silence she had cultivated. Then she thought about Tex, the kid from Oklahoma who played the harmonica around the fire, the kid who had saved her life in Syria. Lily closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She pictured the internal anatomy of the neck, the carotid sheath, the brachial plexus, the spinous process. When she opened her eyes, the tears were gone. The fear was gone. The mouse was dead. She reached into her locker and grabbed a pair of trauma shears, shoving them into her waistband. She ripped the hair tie out of her hair, tightening the bun until it pulled her skin taut. Where is he? Lily asked. Her voice was cold steel. Back of the bird, Jack said, a grin breaking through his beard. Get him into Trauma Bay 1. Now, Lily commanded, marching past him. I need 6 units of ONEG, unwarmed. I need the vascular tray, the thoracotomy kit, and I need a magnet. A powerful one. A magnet? Jack asked, jogging to keep up. The round is magnetic triggered, Lily said, pushing open the locker room doors. If we use steel tools near it, it blows. I need the titanium set. Does this hospital have an MRI suite? I think so. Get your boys to raid it. I need non-ferrous instruments. Go! They burst back into the hallway. Dr. Sterling was still standing there, ranting to the police on his cell phone. Yes, they have guns! They are threatening me! Sterling shouted into the phone. He looked up and saw Lily marching down the hall, flanked by the massive form of Breaker. You! Sterling pointed at her. I told you to leave. Security! Escort her out! Lily didn't slow down. She walked straight up to Sterling. Get out of my way, Caleb, she said. Excuse me? I am the attending. Lily didn't stop. She placed a hand on his chest and shoved him. It wasn't a polite push. It was a tactical strike to the sternum. Sterling flew backward, tripping over his own feet and landing hard on his backside. I am commandeering Trauma Bay 1, Lily announced to the stunned ER staff. Her voice boomed, projecting with the authority of an officer. I have a code black surgical emergency incoming. Jessica, get the blood bank on the line. Tell them if I don't have 6 units of ONEG in 2 minutes, I will personally come down there and drain it from their veins. Yes, Lily, Jessica squeaked, grabbing the phone immediately. It's not Lily, Breaker yelled as he ran towards the exit to get his teammate. It's Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, and you will follow her orders, or you will answer to the United States Navy. The ER doors blew open again. 2 SEALs rushed in, carrying a stretcher between them. On it lay a young man, pale as a sheet, covered in blood-soaked combat gear, a distinct, terrifying hole in his neck. Lily looked at the patient. She looked at the wound. "Gloves!" she snapped, holding out her hands without looking. A nurse she had never spoken to slapped a pair of sterile gloves into her hands. Lily snapped them on. "Let's go to work." Trauma Bay 1 had transformed from a sterile medical suite into a forward operating base. The SEALs, Breaker, and a quiet sniper named Ghost stood guard at the double doors, weapons held across their chests, effectively barricading the room from the rest of the hospital. Inside, the air was thick with the copper smell of blood and the sharp tang of isopropyl alcohol. Tex lay on the table, stripped to the waist. His skin was the color of ash, a stark contrast to the dark crimson pooling under his neck. "BP is 70/40, Jessica shouted, her voice trembling. She had stayed. Despite Dr. Sterling's orders to evacuate, the head charge nurse had refused to leave Lily's side. "He's in hypovolemic shock, Lily. We're losing him." "Pressers running wide open," Lily commanded, her eyes locked on the jagged entry wound just above Tex's right clavicle. "Hang the second bag of O-neg. I need his pressure up to at least 90 systolic before I go digging, or his heart will empty before I can clamp the bleeder." The doors burst open, or tried to. They slammed into Breaker's back. "Open this door! This is a lawsuit waiting to happen!" Dr. Sterling's muffled voice screamed from the hallway. "I have the chief of medicine on the phone. Bennett, you are trespassing. You are practicing without a license." Breaker didn't budge. He looked through the small glass window of the door, his face a mask of stone, and simply locked the deadbolt. "Ignore him," Lily said, her voice eerily calm. She held out her hand. "MRI kit." A terrified radiology tech, a young man named Dave, stepped forward. He held a tray of plastic and titanium instruments, tools usually reserved for surgeries within the magnetic field of the MRI machine. They were blunt, clumsy, and harder to use than steel, but they were non-magnetic. I brought everything we had," Dave stammered. "Good job, Dave," Lily said softly. "Now step back, behind the lead shield." She picked up a pair of titanium forceps. She took a breath. The room fell silent, save for the rhythmic whoosh click of the ventilator and the frantic beep 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 of the cardiac monitor. Lily looked at the wound. The experimental round, a smart frag, was designed to detonate upon sensing the magnetic signature of a vehicle engine or the specific density of engine block metal. But it had malfunctioned. It was lodged dangerously close to the carotid artery, pressing against the bundle of nerves that controlled the arm and diaphragm. "Jack," Lily said without looking up, "I need you to hold his head. Don't let him move a millimeter. If he coughs, if he flinches, this thing could shift. If it shifts, it detonates. If it detonates, everyone in this room dies." Jessica gasped. It's live." "It's very live," Lily said. "Jack, traction." Breaker stepped up to the head of the bed. He placed his massive gloved hands on Tex's temples. He looked down at his teammate, then up at Lily. "I trust you, Val." "Bring him home." Lily lowered the forceps. Her hands, the hands that everyone mocked for trembling while holding a coffee cup, were now perfectly supernaturally still. It was as if the adrenaline had cauterized her anxiety. She was no longer the mouse. She was the machine. She inserted the forceps into the wound tract. "I can feel the casing," she whispered. "It's jagged. It's wrapped in the fascia." Tex's heart rate spiked to 140. "He's feeling it," Lily murmured. "Anesthesia isn't deep enough. Push another 50 of rock and 100 of fentanyl." "Pushing," Jessica said. Lily worked with microscopic precision. She couldn't use suction because the metal tip of the suction catheter might trigger the fuse. She had to use gauze sponges to clear the field, dabbing blindly at the blood welling up from the tear in the jugular vein. "I have the bleeder," she said. "It's a partial transection of the internal jugular. I'm going to clamp it now." She clamped the vein with a plastic hemostat. The bleeding slowed. "Okay," Lily exhaled. Now for the hardware. She went deeper. The tip of the forceps brushed against something hard. A faint, high-pitched whine emitted from the wound. Everyone froze. "What is that?" Dave whispered from behind the lead shield. "Capacitor charge," Breaker said, sweat dripping down his nose. "It's waking up." "Don't move," Lily hissed. The whine grew higher in pitch. The round was sensing the disturbance. It was calculating whether to explode. Lily closed her eyes for a split second, visualizing the schematic of the MK4 smart frag she had studied years ago during an EOD briefing. It had a 3-second delay once the anti-tamper circuit was tripped. "I have to pull it," Lily said. "Now. If I go slow, it blows. If I yank it, I might tear the artery." "Your call, Valkyrie," Breaker said. "On 3, Lily said. She adjusted her grip on the forceps. She dug her heels into the floor. 1. The whine was a scream now. 2. Sterling was pounding on the glass of the door outside, oblivious to the fact that he was trying to break into a blast zone. 3. Lily pulled. It wasn't a yank, but a smooth, powerful extraction. With a wet shuck sound, a small cylindrical object covered in blood and gore came free. The whine stopped. Lily didn't celebrate. She turned and gently placed the device into an emesis basin filled with saline that Dave was holding. "Dave, run!" Lily shouted. "Take that basin to the loading dock. Throw it as far as you can into the vacant lot. Go!" Dave didn't ask questions. He grabbed the basin and sprinted out the back door of the trauma bay, kicking it open and disappearing into the hallway. Breaker watched him go, then looked back at Lily. "Clear?" "Not yet," Lily said, dropping the plastic tools and grabbing a standard steel needle driver from the crash cart. "Now I have to sew his neck back together before he bleeds out. Give me 4-0 proline. Now!" 10 seconds later, a dull, thumping boom shook the hospital. Car alarms began to wail in the distance. The shockwave rattled the cabinets in the trauma bay. Dave had made the throw. Dr. Sterling stopped pounding on the door. The silence in the hallway was absolute. Inside, Lily didn't even flinch. She was throwing stitches, her hands moving in a blur of motion, tying knots, closing layers, sealing the vessel. "BP rising," Jessica said, her voice filled with awe. 100/60. Sinus rhythm. He's stabilizing. Lily placed the final stitch. She cut the thread. She placed a sterile dressing over the wound and taped it down. She stripped off her bloody gloves and dropped them on the floor. She looked at Breaker. "He's going to make it," she said. And then the adrenaline dumped. Her knees buckled. Breaker caught her before she hit the floor, holding her up by her scrub top. "Easy, Doc," he smiled. "You did good." The doors to Trauma Bay 1 were finally unlocked. It wasn't just Dr. Sterling waiting outside anymore. The hospital's CEO, Mr. Henderson, was there. The chief of medicine, Dr. Aris Thorne, had arrived. 2 police officers stood with hands on their holsters, and behind them, a gaggle of nurses, orderlies, and patients craned their necks to see what had happened. Lily walked out first, wiping blood from her forehead with the back of her arm. Breaker was a step behind her, his rifle slung, looking like a bodyguard for a head of state. "Arrest her!" Sterling shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Lily. "She stole medical supplies. She endangered the hospital. She set off an explosion in the parking lot. Officer, take her into custody." The police officers stepped forward, looking uncertain. They looked at the massive Navy SEAL standing behind the petite nurse. They looked at the smoke rising from the vacant lot outside the window. "Miss Bennett?" one officer asked. "We need to ask you some questions." "She's not saying a word," Breaker rumbled. "This is a civilian matter," Henderson, the administrator, squeaked. "She is an employee of St. Judas, and she has violated every protocol in the handbook. She is fired, effective immediately, and we will be pressing charges for reckless endangerment." "Reckless?" The voice came from the trauma bay. The crowd parted. Tex, the patient, was sitting up on the gurney. He was pale, shirtless, and covered in bandages, but he was awake. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. "Tex, stay down!" Lily ordered, turning back. "I'm good, Val," Tex rasped, his voice gravelly from the intubation. He stood up, swaying slightly. "I just heard someone call the best combat medic in the Northern Hemisphere reckless." Had to see who the idiot was. Tex walked, stumbled really, to the doorway. He leaned against the frame, looking at Sterling and Henderson. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Tex asked. "She's a nurse," Sterling spat. "A quiet, incompetent nurse who—" "Quiet?" Tex laughed. It was a dry, painful sound. "Yeah, she's quiet. You get quiet when you spend 2 days lying in a ditch in Syria, keeping pressure on a femoral artery with one hand and returning fire with the other. You get quiet when you have to choose which of your friends lives and which one dies because you only have 1 bag of plasma left." The hallway was dead silent. Even the ambient noise of the ER seemed to fade. "Lily Bennett," Tex said, pointing at her, "is a cover name. That woman is Lieutenant Commander Lily Mitchell, call sign Valkyrie. She was the lead medical officer attached to DevGru Red Squadron for 3 years. She has a silver star. She has 2 purple hearts. She didn't get those scars on her hands from dropping bedpans. She got them pulling my ass out of a burning fuselage in Kandahar." Dr. Sterling's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Lily. He looked at the woman he had berated, mocked, and belittled for months. The woman he had called a mouse. Lily stood there, her posture straight for the first time in months. She didn't look down. She looked Sterling right in the eye. "Is this true?" Dr. Thorne, the chief of medicine, asked, stepping forward. He was an older man, a former army surgeon himself. He looked at Lily with a sudden, dawning recognition. "Mitchell, I read the report. The Paktia province ambush. That was you?" Lily nodded once. "Yes, sir." "My God," Thorne whispered. "You performed a thoracotomy in the back of a moving Chinook under RPG fire. They use your case study in the trauma curriculum." Dr. Thorne turned to Sterling. The look of disgust on the chief's face was withering. "Doctor, Sterling, you told me this morning that Nurse Bennett was clinically inept and slow-witted. You attempted to prevent a life-saving surgery on a Tier 1 operator because of... what? Protocol? She didn't follow the chain of command," Sterling stammered, shrinking under the chief's glare. "She is the chain of command," Breaker interjected. "In a trauma scenario, her authority supersedes yours, supersedes mine. Hell, if the president was bleeding out, she'd supersede him." Breaker reached into his pocket and pulled out a satellite phone. He hit a button and put it on speaker. "This is Admiral Holloway, JSOC Command," a voice boomed from the tiny speaker. "Put Commander Hayes on." "I'm here, Admiral," Breaker said. "Target secured, asset stabilized. But we have a situation with the local administration." "Put them on," the Admiral barked. Breaker shoved the phone at Mr. Henderson. The administrator took it with trembling hands. "Hello?" "Listen to me closely." The Admiral's voice sliced through the air. "The woman standing in front of you is a protected national asset. You are currently impeding a military operation. If you do not stand down, and if you press one single charge against Commander Mitchell, I will have your hospital's federal funding pulled so fast the lights will go out before you hang up this phone. Do I make myself clear?" "Crystal clear, Admiral," Henderson squeaked. "No charges. Absolutely not." "Good. Put Mitchell on." Lily took the phone. She held it to her ear. "Admiral?" "Lily," the Admiral's voice softened. "We need you back. You can't hide in a civilian ER forever. You're a healer, but you're a warrior first. The team is rotating back to the sandbox in 48 hours. There's an empty seat on the bird. It's yours if you want it." Lily looked around the ER. She saw the awe in Jessica's eyes. She saw the fear in Sterling's eyes. She saw the sterile, white walls that had felt like a prison for the last year. She looked at Tex, alive and breathing, because of what she did. She looked at Breaker, her brother in arms. She looked down at her hands. They weren't shaking. Lily started but paused. She looked at Dr. Sterling one last time. "Dr. Sterling," Lily said calmly, "regarding the patient in room 402 from 2 weeks ago. You were right. I didn't push the labetalol." Sterling blinked. "What?" "I didn't push it because he was allergic to beta blockers. It was in his file. If I had followed your order, I would have killed him. I fixed your mistake, just like I fixed this one." She handed the phone back to Breaker. "Admiral," she said loud enough for the phone to pick up, "I'm not coming back to the teams." Breaker looked shocked. "Lily?" "I'm not coming back," Lily repeated, a small, sad smile playing on her lips. "But I'm not staying here either." "You're not coming back?" Breaker asked, the satellite phone still in his hand. The massive SEAL looked confused, a rare expression for a man who made a living out of certainty. "But you just proved. You still have it. You're the best there is." Lily took a deep breath. She looked around the emergency room, the place where she had hidden for months, the place where she had tried to bury the ghost of Valkyrie under mountains of paperwork and submissive nods. "I have the skills, Jack," Lily said, her voice steady and echoing slightly in the silent hallway. "But I don't have the hunger, not for the fight, not anymore." She walked over to Tex, who was leaning heavily against the doorframe, a lopsided grin on his pale face. She adjusted the bandage on his neck with a gentle, professional touch. "The war needs fighters," Lily continued, looking at her old teammates. "But the fighters need teachers. I'm tired of patching up holes in boys who shouldn't have been there in the first place. I'm tired of losing friends." She turned to the phone, which Breaker was still holding. "Admiral?" "I'm listening, Commander." The Admiral's voice crackled. "I won't deploy," Lily said firmly. "My days in the sandbox are done. But you have a backlog of 300 combat medic candidates at the Naval Special Warfare Center who are learning outdated protocols. They're learning from books written 10 years ago. They need someone who knows what modern ballistics do to a human body." There was a pause on the line. "You want to become an instructor?" "I want to be the lead instructor for the Special Operations Combat Medic course," Lily corrected him. "I want full autonomy over the curriculum. And I want my commission reinstated, but strictly stateside. I'll teach them how to keep you boys alive, so I don't have to do it myself." "Done," the Admiral said instantly. "Report to Coronado on Monday." "Welcome home, Valkyrie." Breaker grinned, clapping a heavy hand on Lily's shoulder. "Instructor Mitchell, God help those recruits. You're going to eat them alive." "Only the weak ones," Lily smiled. She turned back to the hospital staff. The dynamic had shifted permanently. She was no longer the subordinate. She was the highest-ranking officer in the room. She walked up to Jessica. The charge nurse flinched slightly, but Lily reached out and took her hand. "You stayed," Lily said softly. "When Sterling ran, you stayed. You passed the meds. You held the line. You're a good nurse, Jess. Don't let anyone like him," she jerked her head towards Sterling, "convince you otherwise." Jessica teared up, nodding. "Thank you, Lily. I mean, Commander." "Lily is fine." Finally, Lily turned to Dr. Caleb Sterling. The young doctor was leaning against the wall, looking like a deflated balloon. His ego had been punctured, his authority shattered, and his prejudice exposed. He couldn't meet her eyes. "Dr. Sterling," Lily said. He looked up, flinching. "You have good hands," Lily said. "Mechanically, you are a decent surgeon. But medicine isn't about mechanics. It's about humility. You almost killed a man today because you couldn't admit that a nurse might know something you didn't. You treat titles, not patients." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "I'm leaving. You'll keep your job. You'll keep your parking spot. But every time you walk into a trauma bay, every time you scream at a new nurse for being too slow or too quiet, I want you to remember today. I want you to remember that the person you're yelling at might just be the only thing standing between your patient and a body bag. Be better, Caleb, or get out of the way." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel. "Let's go," she said to the SEALs. "We can give you a lift," Breaker said, gesturing to the exit. "Beats taking the bus." Lily laughed. "Yeah, I guess one last ride won't hurt." The group moved towards the exit. Lily Bennett, the mouse of Mercy General, walked out the automatic doors flanked by 4 of the deadliest men on the planet. Outside, the Black Hawk's rotors began to spin up again, the whine of the engines growing into a roar. The wind whipped Lily's hair, pulling strands loose from her bun. She didn't fix it. She climbed into the cabin, sitting next to Tex. As the helicopter lifted off, blowing dust and debris over Dr. Sterling's BMW one last time, Lily looked down through the window. She saw the hospital shrinking below her. She saw the small, petty world she was leaving behind. She wasn't running away this time. She was moving forward. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the dog tags she had hidden for so long, and placed them around her neck. The cold metal felt heavy against her skin. It felt right. The mouse was dead. Valkyrie was back, and she had work to do. 6 months later. The lecture hall at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado was stiflingly hot. 50 young candidates, Navy corpsmen, Army medics, Air Force PJs, sat in rigid silence. They were exhausted, muddy, and terrified. The door at the front of the room opened. Lieutenant Commander Lily Mitchell walked in. She wore crisp Navy working fatigues, her silver oak leaf insignia shining on her collar. She walked with a confident stride, carrying a single laser pointer. She stopped at the podium and scanned the room. Her eyes were sharp. She waited until the silence was absolute. "My name is Commander Mitchell," she said, her voice projecting to the back of the room without a microphone. "Most of you think you are here to learn how to put on a tourniquet. You are wrong. You can teach a monkey to put on a tourniquet." She clicked a button on the remote. The screen behind her lit up with a video of a chaotic ambush. Dust, screaming, gunfire. "You're here to learn how to think when the world is ending," Lily said. "You're here to learn how to keep your hands steady when your heart is hammering at 200 beats per minute. I am going to teach you how to cheat death." She stepped out from behind the podium and walked down the center aisle, looking each recruit in the eye. "Some of you have heard stories about me," she said. "You've heard I'm a ghost. You've heard I'm hard." She stopped in front of a young recruit whose hands were trembling slightly on his desk. She looked at his hands, then up at his eyes. She smiled, a genuine, encouraging smile. "They're right," she whispered, "but stick with me, and I'll make you unbreakable." Lily turned back to the board. "Lights out. Let's begin." Lily Bennett walked into that hospital a ghost, hiding from her past. She walked out a legend, reminding everyone that true strength doesn't need to shout to be heard. "Doctor, Sterling learned the hard way that you should never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book is a highly classified manual on combat trauma. Lily didn't just save a SEAL that day. She saved herself, finding a new purpose in teaching the next generation of heroes. Now, I have a question for you guys. If you were in Dr. Sterling's shoes, would you have listened to the nurse sooner, or is the hierarchy of a hospital too strict to break? And do you think Lily made the right choice by not going back to the battlefield? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. We drop new real-life dramas every Tuesday and Friday. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.